Commissioner Robinson, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Yep.
Oh, absolutely.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. This is going to be a problem. Never mind. Okay, well, let's go up the dais. I was going to say around the room, but we don't have around the room anymore. Starting with Commissioner Robinson, please introduce ourselves.
Yep, Commissioner Robinson, City of Largo. Forgot for a second.
Tampa.
Councilmember Albritton, City of Clearwater.
Josh Holman, City of St. Petersburg.
Good morning, I'm Brad Miller with PSDA.
Pat Gerard, County Commission.
Good morning, Nikki Day with Bryant Miller Olive, Acting General Counsel.
Good morning, Dan Saraki, Mayor, City of Oldsmar.
I'm Vince Cox, and I'm appointed by the Pinellas County Commission.
Jeff Gow, City Commission, City of Dunedin.
Good morning, Councilwoman Patty Reed, City of Pinellas Park.
And Vice Mayor Jim Oliver, City of Seminole.
All right, thank you. Let's see, we have a recognition this morning for the Federal Triennial Review. And Debbie Leos is going to tell us all about it.
Well, good morning, everyone. Let's see if I can.
Somebody has some glasses they can lend her.
I know. Oh, somebody's taking control of my screen here. Right, this worked perfectly yesterday, so we will
There we go.
get over there. For all the practice I did yesterday on this.
Rachel,
Looks
maybe you can help her.
Looks like you deleted it.
We're going to cover up.
Let's see if we can. Okay, so share.
Yes, we're covering,
Yes, new vision plan.
we're getting a vision plan.
And, oh, here's the little guy. Well, I'll be doing this about 50 times today, so I should be really, really good by the end of it. But good morning, everybody. Debbie Leas, Chief Financial Officer here at PSTA, and we have gone through a triennial review. And what that is every 3 years, the Federal Transit Administration comes into PSTA. This time it was virtually, and they review a significant number of areas. Matter of fact, there are 23 areas that they look at. You're used to me talking about financial audits. This not only covers financial, grants, it covers everything, 23 areas on here, everything from legal to maintenance, procurement, safety, grants, planning department with their Title VI, the HR department, with drug and alcohol-free workplace, EEO, you name it, it's covered. Matter of fact, there are over 250 areas of potential deficiencies or findings. So what I wanted to do today is be very transparent and show you exactly how many findings we had. Absolutely none. And it takes quite a bit for us to be able to do that. And how did we accomplish it? It's basically everyone has to do something right every single day. From the time the next day after the triennial concludes, that starts the new period for the triennial. So as you can see from all the areas, it takes literally the village for us to make it go right. But it also requires an expert. My little cat herder, and she has kept us in line, and that is Pam Wrights, our manager of grants and contracts. She is the most senior employee at PSTA with over 35 years. And she is absolutely amazing, keeps us on task, And she's not here today because I actually allowed her to take a well-deserved vacation away. But I just wanted to report that out, and that concludes my presentation about Pam and our wonderful triennial.
Wow.
Any questions?
Well, yes, excellent. Well, I have to say, so as someone who's been in charge of accreditation a couple of times, I mean, it's the same sort of process, and I have never gotten a perfect rating. So congratulations. That's
Thank
really
you.
hard to do, because they come in looking for things.
That's right, I think they're paid by that.
All right. Now it's time for public comment. Do we have any cards?
Which one are you doing now?
Anyone hanging around outside wanting to say something?
I checked with Rachel and she didn't have
Okay,
any cards.
nothing.
No cards.
Okay. We must be doing a great job.
Yeah.
Okay, now it's time for the consent agenda. Are there any items that you would like to have pulled? We have minutes from May 25th, easement agreement with Largo, information technology contracts, and waste management and recycling services.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion from Mayor Saraki, a second from Vince Cox. If you'll open the voting thing.
Here we go.
Oh, I didn't get it, okay. I'm a yes, I don't know what happened.
There we go.
Okay, well, that is unanimous. All right, committee updates. Transit Riders Advisory Committee, Mark O'Hara.
I think he's appearing by Zoom.
Oh,
Is that right?
no. Okay,
Is he not?
I guess,
There he is. There he is.
oh, there you are.
Oh, I didn't realize I was muted. I'm sorry.
You good girl.
I just got back from vacation, so I'm taking some well-deserved work from home days. Let me just pull up my report here real quick. They told me there was going to be a long presentation, so I was giving it a minute. All right, good morning, Chair Gerard, Mr. Miller, and esteemed board members. I'm very sorry that I cannot be there in person today, but the TREC did meet in a hybrid meeting on June 14th, 2022. BJ Galvin, Devon Deal presented how the newly created equity index will be used to prioritize the placement of future bus shelters throughout Pinellas County. We learned that the census block demographic factors of minority population, median household income, disabled population, and households of limited English will be factored into the shelter deployment process. High ridership locations will still be a factor in what stops good shelters, but since PSTA has limited resources to deploy a shelter at every location, adding equity considerations into the criteria helps PSA choose the more equitable deployment option. Committee members made suggestions on bus stop locations in Pinellas County that would benefit from shelters, and Mr. Galvin said he would relay any suggestions to the Amenities Committee at PSTA. Our next TREC meeting will be held on Tuesday, July 19th, and as always, board members are welcome to attend.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yep.
I forgot how little this thing was. I need the glasses, actually. All right, next up, Forward Pinellas School Transportation Committee, Mr. Schulman. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the Forward Pinellas School Transportation Safety Committee met on June 1st and shared some of the end-of-the-year items that they experienced throughout the school year. One of the things they highlighted is the school district has 370 routes and currently only 321 bus drivers. So they still maintain a deficiency in drivers, which is causing delays. They are purchasing a new software package, and I think that might be coming online here soon. They're starting to play with it to help make those routes more efficient. One of the things that was also reported was in one day, they had 194 reports of vehicles passing stopped school buses. That was in one day. And so they're asking for help with municipalities to help make sure as we look forward to the new school year, getting out the message and making sure that drivers are stopping for the school buses. Something that I thought was very interesting was they're also in the Safe Routes to School. There is a ability to partner with the school district and municipalities, PSTA, other organizations to help get grants to help repair areas, sidewalks, easements, other things that would make an otherwise unsafe area safe for children to get to bus stops. For PSTA, that also helps us because many of our bus stops use those same, and our riders use those same access points as well. So that website is saferoutespartnership.org if you're interested in looking to help obtain grants for those repairs. And that was all. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Schulman? No? Okay, local coordinating board, Patty Reed. Oh, let me,
The local coordinating
Wait,
board, LCB, held a special meeting
turn your
on
mic on.
Oh.
There you go, okay. Now it's off, yeah.
There it is.
You're good.
All right, we're good. The local coordinating board, LCB, held a special meeting on June 21st in downtown Clearwater. The annual update to the Transportation Disadvantaged Service Plan, TDSP, for Pinellas County was reviewed and approved by the members. Changes included expanding PSTA's discounted TD bus pass eligibility from 150% to 200% of the federal poverty level and updating per-trip rates to correspond to the newly approved rate model. The board then discussed the major update to the Transportation Disadvantaged Service Plan, including how it differs from the annual update. All board members were requested to review changes and survey results prior to the September LCB meeting when it will be considered for approval. Fort Pinellas and PSTA were requested to distribute the survey using social media. An update on the State Commission for Transportation Disadvantages Innovation and Service Development Grant was also provided, with discussion around it funding cross-country TD trips to Pinellas, Pasco, and Hillsborough counties. The next LCB meeting will take place on September the 20th in downtown Clearwater.
All right, thank you.
Good on that one.
All right.
Okay, Forward Pinellas, Mr. Albritton.
It's actually going to be.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah?
Oh, okay.
The Ford Pinellas Board met in person on June 8th, 2022. The board unanimously adopted the FY 22/23 to 26/27 Transportation Improvement Program. The board also adopted the Multimodal Transportation Priority List, the Transportation Alternatives Program, and the Regional Priority List. There was some discussion about a couple of transit priorities that were removed from the list. The Clearwater Memorial Causeway Busway was removed from the multimodal priority list due to the lack of city support, and the express bus from TIA to Clearwater Beach was removed due to the lack of funding for operations. Although it is still a longer-term priority for PSTA and Ford Pinellas. This funding was moved to a transit capital project on 34th Street South, which will complement the bus lanes and additional transit service, which will be implemented in the next couple of years. In addition, the board recommended approval of 3 amendments to the countywide plan map and accepted the downtown St. Pete mobility study. The board received a presentation from T. Barta and its consultants on the regional rapid transit concept plan to connect Pasco, Hillsborough, and Pinellas counties from Wesley Chapel to downtown St. Petersburg via the interstate system. Finally, the board adopted the annual Pinellas Planning Council budget for the 2023 fiscal year totaling $4.8 million and increasing the 0.0150 millage rate to 0.0235, which is an equivalent to a 1.73 increase for an average household. Well, that's all I got.
Questions? Okay, and T. Barta?
Oh,
You're
yeah.
going to give a report?
Good morning, everybody. So Commissioner Flowers is our PSTA appointee to the T-Barta Board, and she's not here. And then Mayor Welch's designee on T-Barta is Commissioner Fig Sanders, and she's also not here, so you get me. T-Barta held their meeting right here at PSTA on May 27th. Staff is working on a CSX corridor passenger rail study procurement, but there was much discussion about whether to proceed with the study or put it on hold until more information could be obtained from CSX. The board decided to revisit the topic during the July policy meeting, so the study has not begun. T-BARTA received a clean FY 2021 financial audit. Way to go, Debbie. Brian Quinlan from Clifton Larson Allen presented the good FY 21 financial audit results. Al Burns provided an overview of T-BARTA's proposed DBE program and recommended a goal of 2% for the fiscal year 2022 and 2024. There was much discussion about the goal level, but ultimately the board voted to approve the DBE program and staff recommended goal by a vote of 6-3. And finally, Matthew Land, interesting name because he works for Eve Air Mobility, gave a presentation about air taxis. Eve Air will not operate aircraft, but will only sell and lease them. They will maintain and support urban air mobility vehicles from other developers and are developing an urban air traffic management solution. Finally, as we all know, shortly after the meeting, the governor vetoed all of the T-BARTA funds for next year. And so it is anticipated that the T-BARTA board will begin discussing the future plans for the agency at its upcoming July 15th meeting in light of the state's continuing lack of funding. So stay tuned on July 15th.
Great. Questions, comments? Okay, thank you, Brett.
Okay.
Okay, our one action item this month is health benefits contract, and Debbie Leos is going to, and Deputy Director of Human Services.
Just helping out.
O'Hara.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Well, good morning again, Chair and board members. Today, Liz O'Hara, our Deputy Director of HR, and myself are going to be talking about an action item. It was unanimously approved by the Finance Committee, but it's regarding one of our largest cost items here at PSTA, employee health benefits. And every year we bring this back to the board. Why? Because the price is negotiated annually. So that's why we bring it back. Matter of fact, this year, the contracts that we have in place are expiring at the end of this fiscal year, so we went back out for a solicitation. And we received a significant number of proposals. And what I find interesting about this slide is that the evaluation committee consisted of 2 SEIU members, Ben Kaus from our award-winning maintenance department, and Ken Elliott, who is one of our union representatives and a bus operator. I was extremely pleased with the amount of effort and work and hours they put in reviewing all of these proposals. Some of the proposals were several hundred pages long. They asked very pertinent questions, were very value add to the evaluation committee. Liz, would you tell us about the next one? Yep.
Good morning, Board. So as most of you know, we offer 3 tiers of coverage to our employees. We offer our buy-up plan, which is the lowest monthly premium to the employees, or the highest monthly premium to the employees with the lowest deductible and lowest out-of-pocket to them. We offer our base plan, which is what the majority of our employees are enrolled in. It has a slightly higher deductible and out-of-pocket, slightly higher deductible and slightly lower out-of-pocket with lower monthly premiums for the employees. And then our completely free coverage to the employees is our high deductible health plan, which is the second most utilized plan we have, which is also paired with a health savings account for them.
Out of the proposals we received, and we received 4 for the major medical and pharmacy, 2 rose to the top, Cigna and Aetna. As you can see from the chart, well, first of all, Cigna was scored highest by the evaluation committee, and one of the reasons was they had a much better pharmacy plan. As you can see from the chart, Cigna's out-of-pocket costs were significantly less than Aetna's. In addition, 13% of the prescriptions used by our employees here at PSTA are not covered by Aetna. So that was one of the things that was very important to us from the aspect of the employees. When we were putting together the budget, we took a look at the industry average of how much is health insurance going up, and we initially put in about 9% into the budget. When we received the proposals, Cigna came in at 6.9%. After negotiations, we brought it down to 4.5%. So that was very good, nice, feeling good. Now, when we take a look at the premiums per pay period, Liz is going to get into more detail about, one of the things that I think sets PSTA apart from a lot of other employers is that we do offer a high deductible plan, and it's free for single members, which is the majority of our employees are in that single category. And I think that really helps, as I said, hiring and retention, and PSTA does contribute to the HSA plan. During the Finance Committee, Commissioner Schulman had asked us to take a look at what we could do to further incentivize people to leave the other plans and go into the high deductible plan by increasing the HSA contribution by PSTA. So we did take a look at that. We talked to the union as well to get some ideas. And what we're going to come back with in this draft budget and amend it during the summer is to take a look at putting 25% of the deductible as a contribution to PSTA. So it's not a significant dollar amount for PSTA to do this, but I think it'll be extremely helpful to bring everybody up to what that deductible is. From a single standpoint, between the Fitbit programs we have, what we contribute, and if they contribute to what they are doing, they are going to be right away within, like within the year at what the deductible is. So I think it's important that we do that, and I appreciate you bringing that up. The increases at the 4.5% will be split between the buy-up plan and the base plan. And Liz, I'll let you take it from there.
So as you can see on your screen, the top is what the employees are currently paying per pay period, and the bottom is the proposed FY 2023 plans, with an increase to the majority of our employees of less than $2 in that option 2 employee-only plan, which has the majority of our employees. And this is from the Finance Committee, so it doesn't show those new contributions in that last column, but they equate to probably around $375 for an employee and $750 for the rest of them. So, and as Debbie indicated, we will continue our Fitbit program as part of our healthy incentives. So what that looks like for the employees who are on the high deductible health plan is they can earn up to $3 a day, paid out in quarterly increments towards their health savings account. For the rest of our employees, they can still participate in the Fitbit program. They get a discounted Fitbit, and they can utilize that to do all of the healthy fitness challenges we do to earn gift cards and different prices. We've also continued our biometric screening, which is free to the employee and gives them all of their numbers just in case they can't pop into the doctor's office. We do that on campus for them. And then recently we made our PSTA gym free to all employees. So that's another incentive. Now for our dental and vision insurances, we actually had 8 proposals for both of them. For dental, we are suggesting Cigna. They came in at no rate increase for the employee, no cost increase at all out of the 8 proposals, and that's for the PPO and the HMO. And then for our vision provider, we are recommending MetLife, which is our current provider. Out of the 8 proposals, there's no increase to their proposals at all. So no increase for the employee either. And then for our basic life insurance, we had 7 proposals, and we are recommending OCHAS. They are our current provider, and for the basic life insurance level, they came in at a savings of just over $31,000 a PSTA, and no increases to the employee in the added life insurance categories.
So the action item before you today for our employee health benefits, we're recommending for the medical and pharmacy Cigna, and for the 1 year, fiscal 23, we're recommending it at $10 million. Dental, again, Cigna for $200,000. Vision with MetLife at $50,000, and optional AD&D and life insurance with OCHAS for $70,000. This is a 5-year contract. where we have 2-year base with 3 one-year options. However, because of the dollar amounts involved, we have to come back to you every single year, and also because the price is negotiated every single year. Depending on where we are at and what is going on, the contract allows for us to get out of the contract at any point in time and go back out for another solicitation if needed. So I just wanted to make that clear. You will see me back here every single year. Sorry.
I have a question. So the optional life and ADD, why is there a cost related to that if it's optional?
The employee can have added life insurance. So PSTA provides basic life insurance free of charge to the employee, and they don't have to add any more, but they do have the option of adding more.
So is that the cost for the basic that we provide?
The basic is what we provide, yes.
And Mr. Schulman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Debbie, Liz. First off, great job. I mean, the fact that we're in as a community, we're in upper single-digit inflation numbers, and we're looking at only a 4.5% increase is a tremendous win, both for us as an organization and our employees that also have experienced that increase. And I also want to say thank you for looking at the HSA and talking to other stakeholders to try to see if we could come up with a better way to make sure that people have their accounts funded. My biggest concern was always if those accounts aren't funded, then employees aren't seeking care. And if they're not seeking care, then it becomes a bigger issue down the road for both them and us as an organization. So making sure that that's taken care of is fantastic. I did have a question. This might be more for Al. But in looking at the medical insurance summary, on the chart that's there, which again, Al produced based on my request, so thank you for that. I'm not sure about the scoring for pricing, right? So there are, like if I look at United Healthcare, their cost is, you know, actually maybe I just answered my own question.
Second lowest.
Yeah.
Al, I just answered my own question. We'll move on from that. So that's what happens when you also don't have your glasses up here.
Yeah, I understand. Totally
Those
understand.
two numbers get really small. So I appreciate at least entertaining the possibility of a question. One of the things, though, that we did talk about at the Finance Committee and does become a little bit of a concern for me when it comes to employees is short-term disability. We don't offer anything as far as short-term, as far as a benefit. We have an optional plan. I don't know if that covers short-term or if it's just long-term. But it's important, and I think we've all learned in a COVID world, that if we don't have the right benefits in place, then people will come to work when they really shouldn't be. And that becomes a potential issue for the organization, for the employee, and for the other employees that are around. So I'd like us to at least consider what that might look like to have some sort of short-term disability benefit so that employees can afford to take off time if they are disabled or ill for an extended period of time, and whether that's a cost share or something along those lines. I realize that's not in this particular item, but since we were talking about the overall benefits, I wanted to bring that up. And otherwise, you guys did a great job. Thank you.
So we do have a short-term optional benefit, like Aflac or something?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Okay, any other questions? I will entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
Did you get those? Okay. We have a motion and a second. Please open the voting screen, which I don't have. Oh, yes, of course. Thank you. I actually have a script here. Any members of the public who would like to speak on this item? No, huh? Okay. Then we have a motion and a second. Can you open the voting system? I'm a yes. I can't get my thing to. Okay, and it is unanimous. We're not taking any more votes anyway, so I don't know what happened. Okay, and Debbie Leos, again, is now going to tell us about next year's budget.
See, I get more proficient as we go along. But good morning again, and today we have with me a great new financial planning and analysis team being led by our highly motivated director, Al Burns. We have Nick Sagan, who is our acting manager of financial planning and analysis. And we also have a new team member, which is Kevin Lai, who is one of our budget analysts. And they have really done an outstanding job over these last months, putting together the first draft of the budget, which you have in your package. And as we just talked about during the course of the summer, that's your summer homework assignment. And we will continue to refine it as we go forward. Now, there's two really interesting things about this slide. And what I really like about it most is that we are presenting a balanced budget for fiscal '23 of $111.6 million. The next thing is, in the state of Florida, we have the fourth highest ridership, but yet from a dollar perspective, we are the seventh largest, which points to our effectiveness and our efficiency. And for those of you who've been on the board for a while, you've also heard us talk about with the American Bench Bus Benchmarking Group. I'll get it right. But we're actually one of the most efficient in the country. So we've seen a lot in the last 10 years when our budget was at $61 million. And over that time under Brad's leadership, we have become really one of the most innovative transit agencies in the entire country. We have implemented programs like Direct Connect, using TNCs, things that other transit authorities in the country are now moving forward on, as well as taking sustainability initiatives, et cetera. And speaking of sustainability, our capital budget for the next 5 years is $154.5 million, and also within that is $43.8 million for next year. Now, we have come across a lot of challenges over the number of months putting this budget together, and what I'm going to do is turn it over to Al and talk about some of those challenges.
Good morning, Madam Chair, board members. Al Burns, your highly motivated director, and I'm so pleased to be here this morning. Last year, we're moving forward and we're looking at FY23, but I think all of us can agree that we felt the pain at the pump. I hate taking my F-150 and filling it up. Last time I did, it cost me $100, over $100. And I'd ask you to visualize this. 210 buses, with a 105-gallon fuel tank at today's market price. You can feel how that's going to affect our budget, I'm sure. Thankfully, with the help of Sharon Spellman, the procurement manager, and myself and Debbie, and Kevin, we monitor the mercantile daily to see where fuel prices are headed, and I'm so happy to say that we see a downward trend. We buy our fuel off of the consortium procurement that's led by Hillsborough Area Regional Transit, or HART, and their board of directors just passed those contracts. And I talked to their procurement director yesterday, and we should have those in front of Brad later this week, or probably next week. One important consideration to remember is that we did something different when we did our paratransit service. We're purchasing fuel come October 1 for Jolly Trolley, and we're also purchasing fuel for our contractor First Transit. With that, I'll turn it over to Nick to talk about labor.
Thanks, Al. Morning, board members. Nick Sagan, spreadsheet wizard here at your service. In addition to fuel, our labor costs have also increased. Now, this is an increase we don't really see as a negative thing. We consider this to be a good increase. The reason it's going up is two-part. The first part is the union settlement to make our bus drivers the highest paid in the state. And secondly, for the admin staff. Admin staff in this proposed budget will have a chance of getting a 2% merit increase. In addition to that, 100% market increase to the midpoint of the market rates. So in addition to the labor, our contracted services, as you all know, have gone up. In the past, we had a provider named CareRide, and they had to go out of business. We got a new vendor. The new vendor came with new vehicles and more, but at a cost. And that cost isn't even inclusive of the fuel rates that Al was just talking about. So, Al?
So you heard from Liz O'Hara about the healthcare benefits that was brought before you. And I couldn't be so happier for the procurement team that they led the procurement with Garing's help and also the ending result negotiations. Just as a reminder what Debbie said, we projected a 9% increase over where we were at last year. And thanks to Garing's help, Sean and Cam, we were able to get have that to a 4.5% increase. So I'm really excited about that. Bus parts. I'm talking as the procurement director now, and my team and anyone that knows me and my colleague Henry Lukasik, they'll tell you what's the most important thing to Al, and that is to keep the fleet moving, and you can't do that without bus parts. We have various contracts, and a lot of the suppliers of those contracts have requested escalation due to supply chain shortages and supply chain issues and whatnot. The procurement staff, we review those requests. We make sure that they have the appropriate documentation to support those requests. We vet that with Henry Lukasik, my colleague, and therefore we're estimating, due to all the volume of price escalation requests, that will be going up approximately 8.5%. So you can see that we have a lot of challenges, and we've faced a lot of challenges, and now we'd like to talk about how we're going to address those.
Okay, so as you can see on this slide, all those challenges we've addressed and we've had strategic solutions to. On the financial planning and analysis team, we like to think in everything with a solutions-based lens. Some of those solutions include happy, engaged employees and electric buses. And all of these solutions are included in the current proposed budget. Al?
One word that you've been hearing a lot is strategic. And that's what PSTA is, and that's what the FP&A team and the procurement staff is all about, being very strategic. We're being strategic in our competitive procurements. We're being strategic in how we go out and acquire these goods and services that we bring before you, and I can assure you that we're being very aggressive at the negotiation table. However, I thought I was good at negotiating. But I learned a lot from Brad at the negotiation table when we were negotiating with internal staff and all their requests. Brad cut internal requests by over $5 million. Didn't make him popular at the time at the table with my peers and chiefs, but I will say, Brad, you are the GOAT when it comes to negotiating, and I took a lot from you. Also, we're taking a fresh look at anything that was funded with our capital budget. Thanks to the federal infrastructure bill, we are now looking at projects that we would fund with operating dollars and having those funded by having those funded by federal dollars. I've been at PSTA I said almost about 4 years. And there were a couple of things when I met with our CEO that he told me was important. But when I came into this role, and we were getting ready to go into our first budget meeting, I said, Brad, what's the most important thing? And what's the goal of meeting? And he said to make sure that our budget is in line with our policies and our strategic plan. And part of our strategic plan is sustainability.
So speaking of our goals, we're also confident that we have the needed funding in place or programmed on the capital budget to achieve ordering 60 zero-emission buses over the next 5 years. This helps us become less dependent on fluctuating fuel costs, so that way we can make better projections in the future and have more control of that. And Henry and Debbie Leas will be speaking more to this after this presentation. Al?
Social sustainability is very important. And Commissioner Reed, this morning in your update that you acknowledged what Nicole Dufa and Cassandra Borchers from our board, from staff brought before you earlier this year. They gave you a presentation from a social sustainability perspective that we're increasing the poverty level to 200% from 150%. In short, what that does, that makes riding PSTA more affordable for the people in Pinellas County. Also, we are very active from a sustainability. We have a DEI initiative that's being headed by our Human Resources Director, Trish Collins. Also, I'm also serve as your DBELO, which stands for Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Liaison, in short for the small and minority businesses. As you may be aware, that we've exceeded our goal of 7.71% for DBE participation. Also, we're working with the schools in trying to provide rides and looking at offsetting some of the Pinellas County school systems transportation needs. So we're very, very social. And I just want to say, again, Brad, we did a food bank a year or so ago with the Leadership PSTA class. I was like, Brad, what does this have to do with public transportation? And Brad looked at me and said, Al, our mission is not only to provide public transportation, but also to be a part of the community. And I think that's part of our social sustainability plan.
So board members, this is my first year fully managing the budget cycle, and I couldn't be more proud to say, especially with the inflationary challenges that we had, that we are coming to you with a balanced operating budget. In your packets are a copy of the proposed budget in full. Please take a look at that. We're going to be making some final touches on it over the summer, and we'll bring it back to you in September for adoption. Commissioner Oliver's already gotten a head start and had some great questions for us on that, so thank you, Commissioner, for your feedback there. The best part of this slide right here is the team got to learn that James Bradford is left-handed.
So I hate to keep bringing Brad's name up, and I apologize, Brad, ahead of time, or after the fact, rather. But in that one meeting, when I first got here, Brad came to me, and I just had transferred over from Hart, and Brad said, Al, the most important project that we have, and the thing that I want you to primarily focus on is the BRT. And don't tell Whitney I use BRT. And it's been now its official name is Sunrunner. And at the close of this fiscal year and the start of the next fiscal year, around that time frame, I am so highly motivated to say that we are looking forward to the grand opening of the Sunrunner. With that, if there's any questions, Debbie, Nick, or I would be more than happy to answer them.
Yes, Mr. Cox. Oops, did I? Oh, you're good.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Al.
Can you tell me?
I'd like to, I have a question in the budget packet itself. If we could go to page 92 of the budget packet. But you should have it right there, too. Yeah, we have it here. It's in our packet too here, Board. Page 92. It's a mobility division overview.
Mm-hmm.
Page 90, it says 92 on the.
Okay, page 90. See, mobility division review.
Yes, sir.
Do you have that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, my question comes on purchase transportation, MOD, and we adopted for this year, 2022, $2,800,000, but it's projected to be $3,311,000. And I don't recall hearing about that increase, and I'd like an explanation on that, please.
Excellent question. When we take a look at the expenses on a monthly basis, it may get lost a little bit in the shuffle there. But what you'll also take a notice is, yes, MOD is going up. Purchase transportation as far as the paratransit is going down from where we anticipated. So we're seeing that the program of being able to pick up the phone and get a ride on demand is very, very popular. So you're seeing a decrease in the projected costs on the paratransit, where our adopted budget was 9.5 million, and our projection is about 8.5 million. Conversely, we're taking a look at mobility on demand, as you mentioned, is budgeted at 2.8 million, but we're coming in above budget at 3.3. So we will actually have a budget savings overall.
And how
Excellent
much
question.
of that, Debbie, is being spent to augment our paratransit and the MOD? Meaning if they can't get picked up by the paratransit because of the way the routing system is, about how much of that money is being used to augment that? Meaning instead of using the paratransit that somebody was scheduled for, that they're calling, or we're using MOD to pick up the individual. Do we know that?
I do not, but I can certainly find out and answer.
Commissioner Cox, thank you for your comments. As you know, you can see on that chart on page 92 what Debbie's talking about.
Right, I see
Where, yes, the line of mobility on demand went up by 500,000, but the two lines above that went down by $1 million. So the net effect is a positive. The service is much more efficient. Your
Right.
question about whether, how much of this fund is to augment the paratransit, the true answer to that is zero. None of it is augmenting the paratransit because the rider always gets to choose.
Okay, let me say.
It's the choice of the customer on what they get, and they're choosing far and away more and more to get a ride real time.
Okay, and I understand that, I totally understand that. And, but again, my question is, because I know sometimes the way it works with our paratransit software on access mobility, that they can't real-time dispatch a vehicle to pick somebody up if they haven't been picked up or so on and so forth. So we use mobility, MOD, to go get that person. The price I know is more for MOD for the non-ambulatory. It's $41 for a wheelchair trip, correct? And then also with I guess my question would also be, if we're going to use a ambulatory vehicle, is it a flat rate for the ambulatory vehicle on MOD, or is it meter rate, or how does that work too?
It depends, there's all sorts of contracts that Al has secured for us.
Right.
But the bottom line, as we're saying, and I'm grateful for this, this is how I'm able to afford the union adjustments, is the net effect of all that we're coming in under budget, which is good.
Well, but I think my concern is what we're paying for these trips also, what we're paying for the MOD trips. See, because we're already paying a contractor that could do those, but unfortunately, they can't dispatch the trip to do these. And so we're using MOD. We could actually have a savings of money if we use the paratransit service. It has drivers actually sitting because they can't be dispatched. And I'll get into that later.
Okay.
So, but it could be a net savings of money for PSTA.
I'm all about more savings.
Okay.
Good.
All right.
Well, I have a question too about the mobility on demand. It's going up almost 62% year to year.
That's essentially the forecast for the use,
Wow.
the demand growth on that. And you can see that even though the rates are increasing on the paratransit, it's only going up by 2%. We're
Right.
just seeing that trend continue. It's a fundamental difference. People want to just get the ride, just call and get the ride home when they're ready, rather than trying to predict a day in advance of what their schedule's going to be like.
Oh, sure. But
Yeah, and then, do we have any data on how long the wait on those trips are sometimes? Because
On-time performance is actually at its highest level it's ever been.
Well, I totally understand that, I understand that with wheelchair transport, who's the vendor, for the non-ambulatory part, there's sometimes quite a wait for them to come pick up people, and beyond a 30-minute wait.
Okay.
There is.
Yeah.
We use them for some of the people we do, and we had to call a cab at one point because the lady sat there for 2 hours.
Yeah, so, I mean, and that's, my budget are my main concern, I understand that, all right, but truly, the service we give to these folks really are, which are the least of these are folks that, I can't imagine myself having to wait in the hot sun, I'll get to you, but for an hour or 2 hours to have a wheelchair vehicle or any kind of vehicle come pick me up, but, okay.
Commissioner Cox, we couldn't agree with you more. One of the things that Bonnie and Brad and myself and James, they've recently made some adjustments to how wheelchair transport provides that service. As recent as yesterday, I met with Nick Cambus, the president, CEO of Bay Area Metro, and we're looking at adding one of our contractors from the paratransit service, First Transit, to be able to augment some of those rides and reduce that wait time. So Bonnie's doing a bang-up job, a magnificent job, and I'm so thankful for her, and she's reeled me in to see if we can't add First Transit to help reduce that wait time. Staff is fully aware, and we're addressing that as quickly as possible, but we have to make sure that with the contracts, that we do it appropriately, and everything goes through BMO, and they're working on that as we speak, sir.
Plus, I do believe on the statistics that Bonnie was reviewing yesterday with us, that our on-time performance is at an all-time high. It's even better than when we had our previous provider, and our mobility on demand is better than our paratransit. And despite that, it's above 95% on time. So I think that's pretty good.
Okay. Any other questions?
Happy reading.
I have no other question.
Okay, thank you. All right, next issue, fleet electrification benefits. I understand Commissioner Gao asked for this presentation about the benefits of PSTA's plan to electrify the fleet, and Mrs. Leos and Henry Lou Kasich, Director of Maintenance, are going to share with us how it saves money.
I told you I'd get better as we went along.
Do you get paid extra for doing all the presentations today?
Really?
Brad? Especially, we just were, Al, Kevin, Nick, myself, we were just at an FGFOA conference for the last couple days, so we're a little fuzzy too, but it was an excellent conference. So today we're going to be talking about the fleet electrification, and yes, Commissioner Gao had brought this up as a feel-good story on how PSDA has really been ahead of the curve and how we are on top of things here. So I always love to talk about things like that. And as Al had just mentioned, our fuel prices have been going up. We all feel it, the pinch at the pump. And one of the things that has happened since the beginning of the fiscal year, when you take a look at just the market rate on fuel, it has gone up about 70% from the $2.57 at the market at the beginning of the fiscal year to $4.35. Fortunately, we've been able to lock in some of our fuel for this year as part of our strategy. But when we look at where we are today in our budget of $2.30 a gallon, we are increasing the budget by 63.5% to $4 per gallon for diesel and $3.40 per gallon on the unleaded. And one of the things is we're headed into a recessionary environment, or maybe some people even say we're already there, is there's going to be some slowing in the economy. And with the slowing in the economy, we are anticipating fuel prices to drop some. Matter of fact, since we met 2 weeks ago at the Finance Committee, we have already seen fuel prices starting to drop, and I can't wait to get the signed contract to start being able to mitigate some of our risk in the next fiscal year. And why that's important especially is we are now not only providing fuel for PSTA vehicles, we are also have been doing it for First Transit. And starting in fiscal '23, we will be also taking on the fuel for Jolly Trolley, which is pretty much the unleaded fuel here at the 25 for our bus types. I'm going to turn it over to Henry, who's way more interesting than I am on this topic, to talk about the positive impacts.
Thank you, Debbie, and that's totally not true, but we'll give it a shot. For the new board members, I am Henry Lukasik, the Director of Maintenance here at PSTA. So specifically speaking, as you've heard, the common theme is fuel. It's painful, so the only way to combat that is, first and foremost, use less of it, which we have 3 types of vehicles here. We have our old diesel fleet, and we have hybrid electric buses, and we are squeezing every mile per gallon out of the older fleet. Our hybrid electric buses are doing about a mile per gallon better, and some of our latest generation hybrids, which would include the Sunrunner buses and buses we purchased back in 2019, are getting closer to 6 miles per gallon. Now, the true way to combat high fuel costs is to use none of it, which our electric buses do not use at all. So, new term that you're going to start seeing as we move forward with more electric buses, it won't be miles per gallon anymore, it will be kilowatt hours per mile. That will be the benchmark. Now, the lower the number, the better. The higher the number, the more energy we are consuming on those buses. 2.35 is where we are sitting at today. Now, when we look at electric buses, in terms of how are we doing today, we set a benchmark goal of 2.5 kilowatt hours per mile. That is across the board over the course of a year as things change. Yesterday, prior to coming to preparing for this meeting, I did a quick survey of all of our current electric buses, of which there's 6 in service, and we're actually doing better than 2.35. We're doing 2.16. So again, the lower the number, the better. Now, for some of our tenured board members here, about 6 years ago, before we purchased any electric buses, you asked me to do a future prediction of what can we anticipate for savings. This in front of you is kind of how it looked way back when, and I can tell you, having gone back and reviewed some of those notes from so long ago, we are actually on track. We're pretty close to what we said 6 years ago. Now, the way we look at this very quickly is PSTA per bus on an annual basis does approximately 55,000 miles per year. That is 2 times the industry average of our colleagues and peers. As you can see, some of those numbers from the previous slide transferred over, but what I point out on what we're going to call propulsion cost per mile, which is made up of either fuel of electricity, hands down, the cost per kilowatt hour of electricity is substantially cheaper than a gallon of fuel. 10.5 cents per kilowatt hour is how much it costs, and that's the blended rate. That's off-peak, on-peak, all combined. Maintenance cost per mile, some folks have said that those numbers look kind of low, Henry, and the answer is yes, they do, and that's done on purpose. We wanted to do an apples-to-apples comparison between diesel and electric buses, so we only put in there parts and labor. We stripped out all of the overhead and some of the more supplies that kind of influence those numbers. That and the fact that it is true, electric buses from a propulsion standpoint have fewer moving pieces than their mechanical engine-driven counterparts. In fact, an electric bus has approximately 20 moving parts in a propulsion system, while a diesel engine has well over 200 wearable parts. Last point I wanted to make was, as of today, the PSTA electric bus fleet has gone now 225,000 miles, which is the equivalent of saving 49,000 gallons of fuel. So that's remarkable right there. Okay, strategic planning and sustainability. These are the key topics moving forward. And as you can see, we've put some bullet points on that screen, but as the Finance Committee heard me mention 2 weeks ago, that there's another bullet there that's not on there, which contributes to sustainability, and that's experience. When you know what you're doing, all right, that keeps you sustainable. When it comes to all electric buses, the maintenance department knows how to maintain them, and the bus operators know how to move them properly and successfully. Thankfully, PSTA's had well over a decade of experience with our hybrid electric fleet, which, as some folks know, those buses share a lot of common operating principles and a lot of common componentry to all electric buses. So, electric buses have been a step forward naturally for PSTA rather than a leap into the unknown that some of our transit colleagues across the country are currently entering into. And with that, any questions, Debbie and I will be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Henry, thank you for the presentation. Commissioner Gao, thank you for asking for it. I saw the original presentation when we were deciding on buying these buses, and it was good to be reminded of where we stand on that. One interesting thing, and actually, Brad was asking me, what's the fuel efficiency I get on my electric vehicle versus his, and we're both worse than the buses. So maybe we could sit in on a bus driver training. But it did make me wonder, do we track fuel efficiency both for electric buses or any of our other buses based on the routes that they drive? So that as we start to assign buses, different vehicles might perform better on different routes.
Yeah, yes, we do. Every month, believe it or not, an 85-page statistical report comes out of the maintenance department. So we divide every single fleet into their model year and propulsion type. So yes, we can see which buses are doing better than others. We can see which buses need a little help. So yes, we do track all of that.
So do we know, are we then, assigning buses based on fuel efficiency to different routes?
That is incorporated into how they're assigned. Currently, with our electric bus fleet, knowing that we only have 6, we are rotating those to collect data, whether it be a circulator, the Route 18, up and down 19. So we are collecting that, yes.
So I appreciate that. One just final point. I do want to make sure that I'm glad we have those metrics and we're looking at them and testing to see what might be the most efficient. But I also want to make sure that many of the points that you brought in as far as the social sustainability, right, especially for the electric buses being in urban areas, being quieter, so they're better for the people who aren't riding the buses, also be part of the calculus that goes into what routes those buses wind up on.
Absolutely, and next year when we receive 14 more electric buses, we will be able to distribute those across the county in greater number, and we're currently working on a purchase order to solidify another 24 into production.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Do we not have 2 more coming from before? I thought we had 8, or we had 6, but 2 more on order, and then the 14.
Those 2 were delayed to go with these 12. I'll tell you why, which was we were left with a decision, produce the buses 2 years ago or wait and take advantage of the latest battery cell chemistry and get 38% more range. So we decided to wait.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Oliver.
Yeah, I don't know how long I'm,
No, you're good. No, now you turn that.
You're good.
I don't know how long I'm going to be able to get away with this. I'm the new guy asking the Columbo questions, but 2 questions.
6 months.
One, what is a propulsion cost? That's number one. And then secondly, if I'm reading the statistics right, and we've just started talking about it, we have 6 electric buses, 14 are coming. Is there a plan to go all electric or a certain percentage electric, and what does that timeline look like? So those are my 2 questions.
So propulsion cost, we are saying that that is the cost of the fuel or the electricity that goes into making it move. It's kind of a group all. If, for example, if we ran CNG here, diesel and electric, it's just easier to say that that's the propulsion cost. In terms, with your second question, we would love to be 100% all electric yesterday. And so our timeline currently right now is December of 2021, the board passed an authorization for 60 all-electric buses over the next 5 years. Timeline's been a hair delayed, obviously, with all the supply logistics going on currently in the world. 14 are coming next year. We hope to receive another 12 late 2024. So that's the 5-year plan. I can tell you the planning department is working feverishly, applying for all of the federal grants known to us, and we've been pretty successful, and we continue to get those and certainly keep moving forward.
Thank you.
Great. We're excited about that. Okay. Well, thank you, Henry. If there's no further questions.
Thank you.
All right. And next up, Brad, is Hillsborough's request to change the funding formula. The answer
Maybe.
is no.
What do I have to do? You tell me what to do. I don't want to touch it. I don't want to.
You just share screen and then
Oh,
find it.
Excellent. Very quick questions to Henry and Debbie about the budget and the electric buses. And the money that we're using to buy those electric buses is the federal formula, federal dollars, federal transit dollars that we get for capital that is allocated by the federal government to every transit system in the country. It's allocated by urbanized area. It's not allocated. Congress approves the budget. The U.S. Department of Transportation then allocates it in the Federal Register by urbanized area. So the Tampa, St. Petersburg urbanized area gets an allotment of funds based on a formula I'm going to describe. The formula has been the same. Congress has not touched the formula since 1982 when PSTA was created. So it's a long-time formula to allocate the funds that Congress approves. Just in the past 3 months, our friends, really the board members of the Hillsborough Transit Authority, HART, which is made up of it's similar to PSTA, it's not exact, but it's county commissioners, the mayor of Tampa, and some citizen appointees, made a request to take a look at the formula and change it so that Hillsborough got more and Pinellas got less, and Pinellas and Pasco got less. So I went over and I presented this presentation to the HART board back in about a month ago, and I did that very confidently, knowing that the way the federal government works with the formula is that they allocate the funds and then they require all of the transit agencies in every urbanized area across the country to annually agree on the split. They don't prescribe us a way to split it up. They just wait to get a letter from me, HART, Pasco, and T-BARTA on how we in the Tampa Bay area would like to split up the money. And we, like almost every other major urbanized area and every other major area in Florida, we haven't really messed around with the way we split it up. We just used the same formula that the federal government used. We just copied what they used and used it locally, so that the way in which PSTA earns the dollars through the formula for the region, they earn it locally. The way T-BARTA with their van pool earns dollars for the region, then they get it locally. That's the way it's always worked. We're talking about the Cross Bay Ferry, for example, submitting its data, and it could be considered public transportation and generate more money for the region that then could be allocated to the ferry, perhaps, in the future. This is the way it's always been done, but now Hart suggested that they'd like to look at a new formula. Again, it's not required to use the federal formula. It's just the vast majority of cities do that. They said, well, it doesn't have to be that way. We'd like one that favored Hillsborough. Hillsborough getting more, Pinellas, Pasco, and T-BARTA getting less. But I wasn't really that worried when I went and presented, because I knew that basically PSDA, Pasco, or T-BARTA has veto power. I mean, any one of us could not sign the letter any year, and then nobody gets their money. The federal government will just wait until they get a letter with all 4 signatures before allocating the money, and then everybody's money is held up. That's the problem with this discussion. When the Hart board said, well, how could we change the formula so we get more money? I said, well, it would have to take money away from one of the other parties, which is probably not going to be very likely, because they can just say no to that. This chart shows the allocation of funds over the last 10 years. And like I said, the formula has not changed. The way we've allocated it has not changed over the last 10 years. And you can see that PSD and Hart are about neck and neck. About 44% of the funds goes to both PSTA and Hart close to equally. And that's really the focus of the Hart board, I would say. They just cannot believe that with their population growth and everything that they could possibly be close to Pinellas in the allocation. But it's not based on population. I mean, it's not only based on population. The formula that the federal government uses is complicated, like everything in the federal government these days, and it was based on a compromise. Based on a compromise with very large transit systems like New York City, with train tracks that were built in 1885, needing a lot of money to just keep their system going, and new urbanized areas like Phoenix and Florida transit systems growing fast. So it was a combination. It was a compromise in Congress that created this formula. And as you can see, there's it's like half based on demand. If you have more population, you do demand more transit in your city. If you have more low-income people, you demand more transit, so you get more money. But also, it's based on what I call SOGR need, state of good repair need. If you have more buses, then you need more money to replace those buses, to keep your existing system up to a state of good repair. If you have fixed guideway, that means rail or ferry for some reason. Fixed guideway. Our Sunrunner BRT will be a fixed guideway. Those have some more major capital expenses, so they allocate additional funds for that. That's how the formula works. You can see that PSTA is actually about a third larger transit system than Hillsborough's, than Hart's is. We have about a third more buses, more bus miles, ridership. That's because they've been cutting back their service over the last several years and running a lot fewer miles. And so that is why our funding has stayed about the same as what Hillsborough's has, even though their population is growing faster than Pinellas is. I point out in my bullets at the top of the slide that there was actually a study. Again, there's been questions about this. There's been studies about what's the best way to allocate the funds, because again, it's not prescribed. Locals can do whatever they want. About 2/3 of all the cities in the United States do it exactly the way we do. They just copy the federal formula and they use it locally. And the federal government knows this so much that in the Federal Register, they publish a how-to guide on how to use their formula and how to make it, since so many cities just do exactly the way what we've done. And every other city in Florida does it the way we've done it. There are a few examples, none in Florida or really in the Southeast. The only city that I really know, the large city that I know that does a different formula is the San Francisco Bay Area. And this was pointed out in the study as well. There are a few large areas that have a regional MPO, that have some kind of region-wide MPO that is over a number of different transit agencies. And in some of those cases, like the San Francisco Bay Area, which has Oakland and San Francisco and a whole bunch of transit systems, they have one MPO. And then the MPO board there allocates the funds based on kind of like our Forward Pinellas allocates funds for different projects and things. But there's really almost no city that does not have a regional MPO that does it any different than we do it. The last comment, again, and I think our Vice Chair, Gina Driscoll, asked this at one of the meetings, was, well, what would be the justification for changing the way we allocate the formula? What was Hillsborough's justification? One argument I've thought to myself is it's not about the money, because the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act of the federal government just increased the formula funding for everybody by 30%. So everybody's number, and that's how we're buying more electric buses. Everybody's funding went up by 30%. So they've gotten a lot more money. It's really just the comparison to Pinellas that is driving this. Is that they feel that they have a lot more need than Pinellas does. One of their board members was concerned, you saw the population density as part of the formula, and they said, well, Pinellas is the densest county in the state of Florida. That's cheating. I was like, well, no, it's not cheating. I guess it's in the eye of the beholder, right? But if you have more population density, that demands more public transportation or different transportation options than just cars and that's been part of the formula for a very long time. But from other folks' perspective, that's not necessarily the way they would like to see it. So I bring this up to you again. We heard that they've reached out to the governor's office at the state. They reached out to their congressperson. Council member Albrecht and I went and met with Congresswoman Castor's office and talked about this. And I think they were very appreciative of this information. It didn't appear as that they understood that it wasn't really something that they would get involved with necessarily. And I've heard from Ron Pierce and our state folks that the governor's office and the state DOT has looked at this and knows that it's not something that they want to get involved in either. There's no immediate danger of us losing any money. The Hart and T-Barda and Pasco signed the letter for 2022 about a month ago. So the next time this will come up is next spring. I know that the Hillsborough board really wants to look at this. They just talked about it at their meeting. They want to see if there's a way that they can change the formula to benefit them. So I think perhaps at some of the Forward Pinellas and other meetings that we'll have, you might hear this come up. And that's pretty much all I have to say. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily something to really worry about. You never know. If T-Barda went away, that worries me a little bit, because then it would be Pasco, Hillsborough, and Pinellas, perhaps, since Pasco and Hillsborough are growing so much more than Pinellas' term population, maybe they would agree to just allocate it by population or something like that. I'm not sure. But
well, I would suggest they take a look at that regional MPO issue again if they really want to change. They were the ones that torpedoed that whole plan.
They were, yeah.
So they get what they asked for. As far as I'm concerned, the answer is no. I won't be on this board next year, but no. Yeah, I'm voting no. Okay, thank you, Brett. Anybody have any questions about that? No. Okay, we have reports and correspondence, future meeting subjects. Brad, do you want to update us on anything?
I do. Thank you. In your packet, under the performance updates, the ridership for report shows that ridership was up again in May. I think that's largely due to the tourists, still sort of the spring break period. We saw very, very high ridership. The tourists came back in big droves this spring, which is always our highest ridership period of the year. Also in your report is the access data tracking report that we've published and we'll keep publishing to you, and you can see on those statistics, I'm very, very happy. Just a couple of months ago, we had a lot of concerns. I want to thank Commissioner Cox for his focus on this, for setting up some good meetings, asking us to track things like on-time performance, and some of the other statistics that are on that report. The numbers are looking really good. Since March, we have really made some great progress with putting a lot of improvements into the software, to reducing our call hold times that some of the customers were complaining about. You can see that on-time performance is getting even better. It's actually exceeding now what it even operated before the pandemic. The ridership is up, complaints are down. It's going pretty well right now. I think there will be some new things rolled out all the time. The software has now created for the first time in our history, an app that the riders will be rolling it out. We'll be presenting it to you in the next couple of months, where the riders can hail their own ride, using the app. They don't have to call and necessarily be on hold or whatever. So not every rider is going to want to do that, certainly, but some will want to do that, and that's a great feature we have. And again, the system that we have now is new and improved. We never had the ability to do real-time rides until about a year and a half ago. Now, thousands, as you see by more riders, 20,000 rides last month chose to get a real-time ride. You get a ride to come pick me up right now. And the customers are just loving that. It's much more flexible for the customer. I know, Commissioner Cox, you have concerns about, and rightly so, about every customer needs to be treated the best, to be picked up on time. And that is our goal, is to treat, these are the most important customers, most loyal customers we have in our whole system. And they all need to be treated with respect. So I think that concludes my performance update report. I just wanted to kind of highlight some of those things. Looking at future meeting subjects next month, talking about electric buses. Next month, we are scheduled to bring back to you for action, to the Finance Committee and then to the board, the partnership that we've now hopefully struck with Duke Energy.
I'm sorry. Mr. Cox wanted something.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I want to ask a couple questions on our data tracking.
Okay.
Now, what we've gone over, and what there were concerns for myself, Commissioner Flowers, that the manual trip assignments are the real key for First Transit to be efficient, meaning we won't have to use MOD as much, which costs more money. That's why I wanted to know how much it costs us for an ambulatory trip on MOD, you know, is it a fixed rate or is it just a meter rate? And that all costs us money, and also,
Yep.
First Transit costs us money, but we have a contract with them that it's a $10 million contract roughly a year, and where we pay them hourly for each of the employees, okay, am I correct? That's the way, it's not per ride like it used to be. So what I had asked for is for us to work as hard as we can to get the manual trip assignments done, because that would eliminate that would eliminate some of the MOD to, not augment, to assist, is a word I should have used. And we could save money. I mean, we could save money if they could actually dispatch a trip. Their average of, I was over there, I looked at the dispatch system, all right? It's not a dispatch system. All it is a dump of data. There's no vehicles. There's vehicles that are on a screen, but a dispatcher can't do anything with them because of the way it's set up with spare labs. It never was like that before. So my concern was getting that done, and we were told that, well, on May 17th, that should be ready. Well, that got changed to June 30th, all right, to do the manual trip assignments, and now it's out to August 15th. Mind you, if these drivers are only doing, and I saw this in real, when I went over there, I saw that they would do roughly 6 to 7 rides a day. When we had manual trip assignments, they would do 11 to 12 a day. And that would actually, because we're already paying them for it, we're paying them by hourly, you know, and they're sitting. They're deadheading. These drivers are deadheading 30 miles sometimes, and we're paying for that gas. So 6 or 7 trips, as opposed they could do 11 if they truly had manual dispatching. It would be the inverse. We wouldn't use as much MOD, which is more expensive, I would think, than our contract with Spare Labs. And this keeps getting pushed out. I would recommend that, because during the time of October to December of last year, that we reinitiated Triennial to come in and assist, and they did it within a few days, and they assisted, and the ridership went up on the vehicles, and I would recommend, because now we're out to August 15 with this, and it's going to cost us money. It's going to cost us money waiting for this to happen, and I would recommend that we temporarily pause Spare, because Spare is not performing up to task, or not performing up to task with dispatch. I would recommend we pause Spare, let them get their work together. By the way, we haven't paid them, right? We paid them $173,000.
Right.
Okay, we paid, I don't think it's a real incentive to get somebody to do the right thing by not paying them, you know. That's my opinion anyway. It's get it fixed. If somebody's mowing my lawn and they mow it and they do a bad job, I'm not gonna pay them, all right? But if they fix it, then I'll say, yeah, here's your fee for that. So the bottom line, what I'm trying to say here, is we're hanging on to Spare Lab, hoping that they're gonna have real-time annual trip assignments, and now we've got to wait till August when we could save money, in my opinion, by going back and having a dispatch system that's in real time, which is Triennial, and let Spare Lab work on their issues, and then, you know, let them come back. That would be my recommendation here.
Thank you, Commissioner Cox. No, and thank you very much for shining a light on this and keeping us accountable to making sure we're providing the most efficient service we can. I would not recommend making any change. I am very pleased with the progress that Spare has made. As you can see, on-time performance is higher than it ever was under the former software. It's the best it's ever been. That is outstanding. Things are getting better.
Well, that's not true first.
I mean, I don't know what numbers you're looking at. I'd be very interested if you have information that I don't have. But
No,
Well,
Okay.
we can certainly talk about it. I do think that there are some things that have changed, certainly. Sometimes, some of the functions about who allocates who decides where the trips go and all that, that's not being done by First Transit anymore. That's
Yeah, I
now
know.
being done by PSDA.
Yeah,
There's
but-
PSDA people right now making decisions about, oh, Brad's done early at the doctor, let's go get him. And those kinds of things that happen all the time. I know you know, because that was your
But
career.
they can't go get them on First Transit because they can't dispatch a trip. Then if it's early, you gotta use MOD, which you gotta pay extra money for.
Well,
And while a driver is sitting and not doing anything, he could be 5 minutes away from a short trip and go pick it up, but they can't dispatch it on First Transit because that's the way the software.
but if we save money and we provide the ride and we get
We're
me
not saving
home, I'm
money.
happy.
Mr. Miller, we're not saving money. We're not saving money because we're paying First Transit hourly, all right? We're paying them hourly for drivers to sit and deadhead, and we're paying for their fuel while they deadhead 30 miles from Tarpon down to St. Pete to do a trip. They're doing 7 trips a day when they could actually average in real time, they could actually average at least 10 trips, and many did 11 and 12, and some ambulatory people did 20 trips a day too. So right now, it's very inefficient, the way it's being dispatched out.
Vince,
But-
can we take this
Okay,
argument
okay,
offline?
okay,
That's
yeah,
like-
yeah. Okay, but I mean, it's the only way I can speak because I can't do it otherwise. I gotta do it at this
You
dais.
can speak with them
Okay.
all day long.
No, I'll be happy to
Okay.
talk with you about it, yeah.
Okay, well, I
Yeah,
mean,
I think
that's
it's
what
good.
I have to say. I really wish this board would consider pausing spare for a while because we keep getting, the goalpost keeps getting moved out on the time they're gonna have manual trip assignments ready, and that's all I have to say.
I think you
Thank
made your
ma'am.
point. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Schulman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Unrelated question, but looking at the operating statistics, you said we were up 6% a month from last year. I was interested to figure, and so our total bus passenger trips are actually up 7.3%. The Looper and Jolly Trolley are down. So the question that came to my mind was, when did we go to half fare based on fuel costs? Do you recall when we changed the fare?
April and the month of May.
Okay, so
2 months. So this includes the half fare.
So these numbers reflect the half fare?
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the things that's interesting to me to keep track of is as we have a flexible fare policy, is that we are paying attention to the ridership. Because one of the questions we've had in the past is, how sensitive are our riders to the cost that they're paying for fares? And, by decreasing the fares, do we actually increase ridership more or not? So I know you attributed it to, spring break and some other travel, but I'm looking at this thinking it's more high gas prices and lower fares on our buses is increasing ridership, which I think is potentially something for us to consider as a board as we set those policies going forward for the community. So just wanted to bring that point up and make sure I was looking at that correctly. Thank you.
Excellent point. I think you probably are more accurate than I am. Yeah. For May.
Just for me.
Right.
Never before.
Once in a while. Future meeting subjects, Brad.
Yeah, so next month, again, knock on wood, we're okay, we're gonna be coming to you with, an agreement with Duke Energy to supply the first phase of our infrastructure that we need for these electric vehicles. Happy to do that. Happy to get that going because we need Duke to get that constructed by the time Henry's buses arrive next year. We're also excited, Trish and I are gonna bring to the executive committee and to the PSTA board a diversity, equity, and inclusion strategic plan. Basically, we have a whole DEI initiative that we've talked to you about, and then now we're developed a strategic plan to even be accountable for some of the different projects and things we're working on with that. So that's exciting. And then the most exciting thing, of course, in July every year is our approval of the trim notice for fiscal year 2023. So stay tuned for that.
You know what? I wanted to ask you a question about Hillsborough County. Do you know if they are at their millage cap over there?
their setup is, I think, legally, I don't know if Nikki can edit my comments, a little bit different than PSTA. They have a 0.5 cap, or a 0.5 millage cap. Interestingly, 0.5 property tax generates in Hillsborough County about the same, almost the exact same amount of money as a 0.75 does in Pinellas County. There is some way that they can increase that, that's different than PSTA, is my understanding.
I'd have to look into it specific to them. I haven't looked.
So I don't know if it's appropriate to call it a cap, but they've been at 0.5 for a very long time. I'm not sure exactly what they have to go through to get it increased.
All right,
I can look into that further if you'd
Yeah,
like, and then get with you after the meeting.
Next month.
Yeah, no problem.
Madam Chair, if we're moving on to other business, I've got some positive things to say. Okay. About the future?
Yeah, I just had a question about the Duke agreement on the future action items. Is that an agreement for them to build out our solar array, or?
That is an infrastructure agreement related to the electric bus charging station.
Okay, so it's electric, but it's not the
Correct.
solar yet, okay.
Correct.
So it's just the, thank you. Yeah, thanks for the clarification.
No problem. I don't know if that was to Brad or me, but jumped in.
Answer the question, that's what I want, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Nikki. Okay, so some positive news. PSA has gotten some recent word on very successful grants. We're hopeful to get more positive news in about a month, too. Congressman Christ announced, and thanks to the congressman and the US DOT for approving a $360,000 grant for a planning grant for studying transportation improvements in the South St. Pete CRA, transportation improvements that possibly would be funded by the CRA. It's not just transit, it's all transportation improvements in the Southside CRA. You will recall just, I think last month, we approved a transit-oriented development planning study that was done on the Sunrunner corridor, which is immediately adjacent to the South St. Pete CRA. And so this planning activities will complement the Sunrunner stations along there, and then basically expand the transit and transportation planning for the whole CRA. So that was great news, and that will get going. We also just got word on Friday, and this was reflected in Commissioner Reed's local coordinating board report. As you probably remember, there was a lot of concern that 2 years ago, the state legislature cut the funding for the regional transportation disadvantage service called TD Tampa Bay, that T-BARTA ran. And this basically took people, transportation disadvantage eligible, low-income folks to appointments and things across county lines. A lot of people took it from like Pinellas to Moffitt Cancer Center. And then the money ran out on that, and it got eliminated by T-BARTA, and it hasn't been running. The legislature then approved $1 million for T-BARTA, but this year to restore it, but the governor vetoed that funding. The great news is that this Commission for Transportation Disadvantage has just approved PSTA receiving a grant that will not only fund our own existing programs in Pinellas, but will also restart that cross-county regional TD Tampa Bay service, which is great news for lots of our riders. Even some of our track committee members will be very happy to hear that. I'm hopeful that will get going later this summer. I mean, it was just approved on Friday, so I'm not sure when we'll get the grant. Of course, fiscal year starts on July 1st, so hopefully we'll get that going in the next month or so. And then finally, I was hopeful to actually make an official announcement, but Ron Pierce called me yesterday and no dice. Sometime very soon, we will be hearing positive note on the VW settlement funds that the state is allocating. State has allocated, I mean, yeah, we were in Tallahassee in December, Mayor Saraki and I, and Commissioner Robinson, you were there too. And we haven't heard yet, but.
Getting close.
Getting close. Finally, thanks to Councilmember Albritton for joining me in Washington, D.C. a couple weeks ago, and having a number of really good meetings about our next hopeful grant award for the Clearwater Transit Center. And I know that was successful, successful trip. Very hopeful that our congressman makes a phone call to his good friend Secretary Pete. That would be great to get us over the finish line for that grant. And I've gotten some positive phone calls and things that maybe that might happen. The other thing which I hope I'll send to all of you by the end of this week is a sample letter that each of you could, if you would be willing to send under your own name to Secretary Pete Buttigieg, advocating on behalf of our grant application for a new Clearwater Transit Center. What Councilmember Albert and I heard when we were up there was that they track every single letter and every single phone call that they get for all projects in some kind of complex point system. And they said, well, Brad, if you write a letter, that's like worth what, 1 point. If Congressman Chris makes a phone call, that's worth like 100 points, you know. But hey, we heard that everybody's letter, Councilmember Albritton's already written some really nice letters. He's probably got 10, 15 points up there, I bet. You think? And if we all wrote letters, that could help us get across the finish line on that, I think.
All right.
So I'll send that to you. So thank you.
Okay. Do we have any other business to discuss? Yes, Commissioner.
If I may, I just wanted to say thank you to PSTA. I attended the Pride Parade last weekend. The PSTA had a great representation out there. I know it's important for the staff of PSTA to feel represented, and it was a great opportunity for them. And also, not as important, but very important for me, the park and ride system that PSTA had was probably the most efficient park and ride I've ever been in. It literally parked my car, my wife and myself and my daughter hopped on the bus, drove down to the next stop, which was about 2 blocks from the parade, participated in the parade, and then same thing on the way back, and it could not have been any more efficient. So thank you for that. That's all I had. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that. Thank you for the Jolly Trolley that
The Looper?
VSPC, was the Looper that VSPC was on?
Oh, no, I think that was Jolly Trolley.
Yeah.
I saw like 2 Jolly Trolleys in the parade,
Yeah.
plus our bus, plus a Looper bus.
Yep.
Transit was well represented.
Well represented.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, we're gonna have a sunrunner.
Yet.
Next year. Okay, any other comments for the good of the order? If not, we are adjourned.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, yeah.
Truncated.
Should have put out these little flyers.
I had a meeting with someone Monday, didn't realize it's also the date.
Have a good weekend.